kind of thing. So you had this battlefield in the religious, and then all these people who believed in Jesus Christ gave their life to Christ and became Christians, which wasn't what they called themselves. They called themselves in the way. Christian was the term because they looked like Christ or acted like Christ. And Paul's issue was this started to come back into the church. He's ministering to Jews and Gentiles, and he's saying, wait a minute. We've taught you the resurrection. You know the resurrection. You've talked to us. You know the people who have seen it, and now you're listening to people say there is none. And so he begins to argue this. The rest of the chapter, he's arguing with them over this point. How could there not be any resurrection of the dead when Jesus resurrected? He is the proof that this will one day be for all of us, not just him. In the same chapter, if you go down to verse 51, Paul says this. He says, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trump shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall all be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying which is written, that death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your sting? And O grave, where is your victory? Today I want to talk to you about death. Where is your sting? Here's the thing. Death doesn't have a sting for the believer anymore. That's right. We try our whole lives. Did you know the number one fear that people have is death? The second fear is public speaking. Your whole life, you are afraid of one thing, and that's death. And the one thing you're fighting is death itself. And the one thing that's already been given victory and you have victory over is death. It's not even your fight, and yet you fight it. Why do we do that? Because we don't understand that death is no longer a doorway. It's just a veil. God emptied it from being such a door. It was for David, if you go back into Psalms, he grieved the idea of death. He grieved the idea of going to Sheol because I'm away from the Father. I'm away from God. And yet, if I make my bed in hell, there he is. He's not talking about hell, Gehenna, the place of torment. He's talking about Sheol, the Abraham's bosom, the holding place. Because before the cross, that's what they had to look forward to. We don't have that, though. Because Paul even explains that when we close our eyes here, we open our eyes there. To be absent from my body is to be present with the Lord. So we have a blessing on the other side of the cross. Thank God. On the other side of resurrection, we have a hope that David didn't have. That's why I'm glad I'm on this side of it. Because we have that hope. And so when you're facing death, it doesn't have the same sting. We fight our whole lives from death. Let's not get near each other and cough because it might be coronavirus and I'll die. We have such a fear of death. Why? Why? When it's something that we all long for. It's a question I've sat and stirred and looked at. The older I get, the more this place, this earth is not my home. I look at this place and think, Lord, you can take me anytime. I'm good. I mean, that's really sad. But you start to feel like that. And I'm not saying suicidal. Please don't get me wrong, okay? I love my life. But there is a part that you just want to be with God. You're done. And when I watch some of the stupid stuff going on around the world, I think, Lord, you can come anytime now. I'm really good. I'm good. I've had enough. I've had a taste of this world, and it doesn't satisfy. It just doesn't matter to me. But death doesn't have the same sting. For someone who doesn't have Jesus Christ, death hurts. Death is painful. Death is an unknowing thing, and it's scary and it's fearful. But with Christ, there's no fear. I watched my grandfather last year, and there was no fear on his face. It was hard. It was hard for him to leave family, but he was not afraid. And I multiple times, my aunt, we were watching him, and it was like you could see him spiritually walking through the woods, knowing he was going to get there at some point. He just was waiting to find the right, stay on that path and get to the light of it. And so we were watching, and God had given me a vision about the veil, and I talked about it a little bit. Today I was going to talk about it a little bit more. So I had this vision, and I had this dream, and I know I'm going to walk past some of you guys' vision, but this veil that I saw in my dream, so it was the night before. My mom said, you're going to stay with Grandpa and talk to him and hang out with him. And I went home, and it seemed like he'd been struggling for a few days, and I said, Lord, I don't want him to struggle. When you know someone's passing, the one thing you don't want him to do. We'd already had all the days where everybody's been prayed over, talked to him. I think our family, we were okay. We were ready. But I didn't want to see him struggle. And I said, Lord, help me to give him peace. And he was still talking a little bit, not much. And so I went home that night, and I'm laying in my sleep, and it was kind of a vision and a dream at the same time because I'm not sure if I was awake or asleep. I have no idea. And I understood when Paul said he knew a man, and he doesn't know if the guy was in his body or not his body, or there's just times you have something happen, but you don't know how. And God grabbed him. He was standing in front of me, and it was like, it was the Lord, but it was the Holy Spirit. I cannot explain this. I really don't know how. And he grabbed my hand and pulled me into this. It was a room, but there was no walls. It felt like it didn't feel like the expanse of nothing. It felt like there was a room. And the closer he pulled me, I saw this veil. And the veil looked really heavy. Like this has got some thickness, okay? But it was thicker than that. The further away I was from it, the thicker it felt. And the closer I got to it, the thinner it became, till it became actually transparent. And it was this really thin, real thin. I mean, I could see through it, but I couldn't see through it. I could see there was a person standing right against the veil, and I could see like the shape of their face, but I couldn't see them all the way. It's really hard to explain because you see with your mind's eye and you see with your spirit, you don't see with your explanation of English, which is really limited. So it felt like he was right here, and the person behind me, which I believe was the Holy Spirit, told me to put my hand up. And I put my hand up to the veil, and I could feel the other hand like there was nothing. And I could slip right through the veil. It felt like I could just slip and go right through. And it was kind of scary in the sense of like, Lord, I thought I was leaving my body. I thought, I'm dying. I'm going to go, because it was that easy to go through. It was no longer did it feel like there was something stopping me. But he didn't let me go in. But it was so simple. And but what I did feel was no fear. There was no fear. It was absolute peaceful. And I felt like I could have just walked in right myself. And when I woke up, I was in tears. And I said, Lord, what was that? He said, you need to tell your grandfather that. And I was like, he's not even going to understand. I have no idea what I just saw. And so he said something to my mom the next day. He said, I just don't know. I don't know how to do this. And it gave me an opportunity to talk to him about the veil. And I said, it's just a veil, Grandpa. That's all it is. And his hand is right there. And I was holding my grandfather's hand against mine. And I said, there's nothing between it. When you get there, the material will disappear. It will just be his hand. That's all it is. And we just sat there. He held my hand, and we just wept. I said, that's all it is. And we have so seen death as this place of fear and not knowing, and that's not what it is. It's a place that your body falls asleep. That's it. But everything else is moving somewhere else. And your body is simply falling asleep. And if you've ever seen someone laying there in their casket before their burial, you know that that's not them.